So your skylights are going to be shipped to you in 2 halves. So there's 8 skylights total, shipped in 16 halves. The 2 halves of each skylight will come together and will be bolted at the splice section, which we will go into more detail in a moment. So the one sample that we will send you shipped is a half, which is pre-glazed, and that would look similar to what you see on the floor there. And it will be required to have it disassembled for mounting the arches down into the curb properly. The reason we're shipping the half in pre-assembled like this is just to show you how it all goes together, so you can deconstruct it in a sense, disassemble and reassemble, knowing how it goes put together properly. And that is it. I'll take you through the, one other thing. We got all the skylight ends will come pre-glazed with those dome ends that you see there. If you want to just follow me along there, Marco. You see that end is pre-glazed there, and so is this end here with the clear film on it right now. Those ends on all your skylights will be pre-glazed just to make it easier, and will not require disassembly. So you will be actually leaving those ends glazed in place with their retainer frame cap on the outside in place, ready to go. Let's take a look at the splice. Okay, as mentioned, the 2 skylights were going to be shipped in 2 halves, and they'll be coming together and connected at what we call the splice, which is the center of the 2 halves. The detail here we're going to show you in a little more of a close-up. So the skylight will actually be shipped with your nut and bolt, which is used to fasten the splice together. So what you do is just every splice plate will have a 7/16 head bolt and nut, and the screw itself is actually a 1/4 20. So simply remove it from the splice plate. There's 2 per splice plate. One is horizontally and one is on the vertical down leg of the skylight. So as you bring the 2 halves together as such, you'll want to put your bolt back through the splice plate on the horizontal plane here, and screw on your nut. And then you'll want to do the same thing on the down leg of your skylight. Now the key here is to remember to put the head of the bolt on the back side of the leg, between the down leg of the skylight and your exterior curb, just because the profile is a lot less. You're just dealing with the head because you'll have limited space between the leg and the curb. So you would want to insert from the back side, put that through, screw on your nut, and then you'll require 2 open-end wrenches, 7/16 open-end wrenches, to tighten the 2 nut and bolt assemblies together. Just like that. And you'll want to do the same thing on the top here. And this top will pull the two units together nice and snug. Remember to keep everything aligned and square. That way, when you do go to glaze this middle section, the glazing will set in place properly. The last point is once you've done your connection splices on both sides of the skylight, it's always a good idea to check the squareness across your opening to ensure that it is square again, to allow the glazing to set in place properly. So for anchoring the arch sections of the skylight, and you will be anchoring as per engineer specifications every arch lagged downward into the curb on both sides of the skylight, and you will be supplied a 3-inch lag, and it uses a 1/4-inch drive. This lag will be driven down on either end of the arch through these pre-drilled, if you can get in there tight, pre-drilled holes, and on either side of the arch on both sides of the skylight. Your end, if you can just pan back, please. The ends will be pre-glazed as such with the retainer cap, not here in this instant, but this particular arch on the ends of the skylight, on both ends, you only required to drive the lag through the inside part of the arch. The outside, that is basically under the end glazed panel, is not accessible and is not required to put a lag there. So on every end arch, you're only going to be putting one lag per side on the inner part of the arch. Okay, the skylight, once you've anchored your arches with the lags down into the curb, as per engineer specification, you're also required to fasten the skylight on the outer flange, the down flange, around the complete perimeter of the skylight, and you will be supplied with a 2-inch self-drilling hex head screw. And you will see, as you can see here, the pre-punched holes in the aluminum flange of the skylight, and that runs completely around the entire skylight. So you simply use a 5/16 drive, and you would fasten through the hole, penetrating the curb. And it is not necessary to over-tighten these screws. Once they've contacted the flange and gripped the structure, the curb structure, you're good. You don't want to over-tighten where you're getting a flex as such, as you see the frame would flex. If that happens, you will compromise the installation of the actual glazed panel that comes down, preventing it from sitting flat on the gasket. Okay, just as an added note, as I've been mentioning, the skylights will come with the pre-glazed end, like this, with the retainer cap frame installed, and it'll actually be have a redundant silicone seal on the outside that will need to be continued throughout the entire skylight along the retainer cap on the top where it meets the acrylic glazing. The silicone seal will be supplied in your package. The ends come pre-glazed. You'll notice every end will have a spacer section of acrylic just like this, and all it is creating a space equivalent to the thickness of the glazed end, just to allow the pressure plate to be installed for shipping purpose only. So this little section of glazing here is temporary. It's for shipping purpose only and needs to be removed and discarded. You will be removing your pressure plate in order to continue glazing the skylight. And this is the interior that requires the glazing here. Again, discarding this little 5-inch piece of acrylic. In place with the pressure plate and the section of spacer that's going to be disregarded. So you'll be removing the pressure plate as such, backing out the bolts, removing it, and what you'll notice is a filler plate like this that'll be packaged in your shipment. This filler plate is required between each section of glazing to connect the two layers of glazing together, the two sections of glazing together. So you'll be placing your glazing, taking it off and placing it down off your package skid and onto the skylight frame, removing the backer tape on the poly shim and applying pressure down to stick the glazing. Once you've done that, place in the spacer plate between the two sections on every arch, and then you'll be installing your retainer cap. Keeping in mind, as we mentioned before, the end retainer cap will be already screwed in place with the number 8 Robertson drive number 2. And you would lay your retainer cap connecting with the installed retainer cap on the end, and you just drive in your screws following the same height as the glazed end retainer cap, and you would put these in every 12 to 18 inches completely around the perimeter retaining frame. And then you would replace this pressure plate, putting in all your bolts, and you would continue down, installing all the pressure plates on every arch section. Okay, so your package shipment is going to come with some sill-proof, GE sill-proof silicone. It's a glazing silicone. Your end domes will be already pre-sealed with this silicone. You'll notice that will not be touched on site. You will leave that in place. What you will do is, once you've put your retainer frame on the remainder of the exterior frame here, you will continue with a bead of silicone sealing the retainer frame and the acrylic glazing. So you'll simply continue where you'll see it left off from the end dome, and you'll run a nice generous bead around the entire retaining frame. Going around each pressure plate at the arch section.